Come here, Dakota. Come on. Pretty good stuff, huh? I've had her for 12 years. She's 23 now. I was 68 when she came into my life. I was not looking for a horse. And if I had been, I wouldn't have been looking for a big horse. She's 1,100 pounds. She's a draft mix warm blood. And, you know, I rode a lot when I was very, very young with my family, but 50 years, nothing with horses, nothing. Not even desire. I was just, you know, busy in my life, and I wasn't around him. I wasn't thinking about him. And now she came into my life when I was 68, and I thought, oh, I can't afford a horse, not on my income. You know how much a horse costs. I mean, even if you buy a horse, well, I did buy her for what the teenager paid for her, but boarding, you know, shoes, she's not shod, but she's trimmed. That's $50. So you're into like $500 a month. And with me, my income being like $900 a month, it didn't really add up. However, the way I've lived my life is not with a 5-year plan or anything like that, but with what intuitively feels right. And this just felt like the right thing to do. I couldn't rationalize and say, this is why. It's not an investment, it's not this, it's not that. It's just the right thing. So it was difficult. You know, first of all, I was at a barn where there was a lot of teenagers doing natural horsemanship. And they say, you know, the first thing you should do with natural horsemanship is to ride bareback. I said, oh, okay. So I was able to get on her bareback, you know, swing my leg up on mounting block like the one out and back here. And, you know, she was pretty tall and kind of anxious. She's anxious when she has a rider. So she was jigging, you know, up and down. I thought, oh my God, you know, I hadn't ridden in so long. And one of the teenagers said, oh, no, pull her head around to the left really hard, put her in a tight circle, and she'll stop jigging. So I did that, and the 5th time I did that, she bucked me off. I did have a helmet on, and it was in a sandy arena, which they don't have here, by the way. So it was pretty soft, and I went, poof, and I sat up, and she came rushing over, and she put her head on my chest as an apology, I feel. She was saying, I'm sorry, but don't ever do that again. A couple days later, an old-timer stopped at the barn, and I told her about it. I said, what do you think? She said, never do anything more than 3 times. If it's not working, do something different. So that's one of the things, one of the many things I've learned with Dakota. So always lead with the heart is another one. And end every connection, visit, whatever you want to call it, on a positive note. Patience, patience, patience. Well, she is the best teacher I've ever had in my whole life. I do have 2 college degrees. I had a dad who was, you know, full Greek, and he was, you know, dictatorial and, you know, overwhelming, really. And I had a kind of a violent temper, which he wasn't able to control that well. So I didn't know anything about leadership. Nothing. So that's one of the things she taught me, was about leadership. Like, it's not about who's got the most weight or force. It's about clear, open communication. And she happens to be a lead mare, which means if she was in a herd of horses, she would be the one that would pick out the place where they're going to eat, the place they're going to drink, and she would decide how long the herd was going to stay. And the stallion would bring up the rear and make sure everybody's in the herd, and you repopulate the herd and things like that. But so if I have to learn leadership at 68 and on with a horse that is a lead mare, that's a challenge. But, you know, she's got a really, really good temperament. She's also got a really strong temperament. And, you know, if you just mess with her too much, you know, she will let you know. And, you know, of all the things that I've learned with her, the last thing I learned is if you don't pay attention to the things that you just learned and are learning, you're very likely to get hurt. And that's the truth. And it's certainly true. Of course, while I was, you know, thinking about this and writing it, it wasn't about a horse. It was just about a relationship. Not till you turn the page and you see that it was actually about a horse. So, but yeah, she's also really quick to forgive, and a lot of qualities that humans don't, show in abundance, and that don't make it all that easy to learn with humans. But so because I've had her 12 years, and I've seen her every day for 12 years. I've seen her every day, and now that she's having arthritis and needs extra attention, I see her 3 times a day right now, because I'm responsible. Well, I don't have to be, but I really should be, and so I am responsible for feeding her because she's not on a regular feeding schedule. So, damn, lucky me. So the grooming experience I've had with her anyway is a very personal one. She likes to be groomed. I think most horses do, just like the attention. So usually I would brush her whole body and then do the tail and the mane, but I did brush her earlier. Put some fly spray on her. So the fellow that works at the barn just added a 4th board here because see where her mane has come off here? She's rubbed it off because they find little pieces of hay out here. They stick their head through and it rubs off, so he just added a 4th board so they can't get in there anymore. And the other horse that's with her, Fire, has a bald spot here from being in this paddock longer. So the mares, when they had their little young, they like to nibble on this part of the horse, so I do that too. Just a reminder, I know it's a place they like to be. And she particularly, I don't know now that she's colicked, but I'll see. She particularly likes to have her belly rubbed, and then she'll do these really funny faces. Let's see. That's what I mainly do out there on the mounting block. I'll sit down and she'll come next to me and get so close I almost can't keep my balance. So I'll do this. But she's eating right now, so Dakota. The teenager that had her, a young girl named Tina, she brought her up north somewhere near Auburn from a ranch that specialized in inviting people of all sizes to come and ride there. I saw their flyer, even 500 pounds. Please, can you imagine a 500-pound person? I mean, the horse should never carry more than like 20% of its own body weight. So if she's 1,000, she's actually 1,100 pounds. So you shouldn't weigh more than 200 pounds, but I don't know. She has an old injury, which she had before I met her. And it's, it shows up down here in this fetlock. That's where the arthritis is. And we don't know if it was in her back and it shows up here. I mean, rear, we don't know, really. I just know that it really does show here. And this winter was so rough on her. The weather, the rain, the mud, everything for months, that it sort of stimulated the arthritis, and she's never gotten over it. So it's not getting any better, and it doesn't look like it will. And the medication that she's on is not sustainable for her well-being. It's too hard on her health. So she's going to go before I do. But I wanted all my animals. I have a total of 3, 2 little dogs in Dakota. I wanted them all to go before me because I don't want them to end up, in a crappy situation with somebody who doesn't appreciate them or take care of them. So I better then just buckle up and do what needs to be done. So that's what I'm in the process of doing now. So,
were there any kind of funny things that she did that you like to talk about?
Funny?
Yeah. Did she ever do anything funny or strange, or does she have any weird quirks?
Gee. Yeah, she'll take a chair like that little plastic chair over there. Every time there's a chair or a little set of stairs or something, she'll tip them over with her nose. It's like somebody, when she was quite young, I think, taught her to do some like little horse tricks, and she still does them, and I never know what they're going to be. One thing that the teenager, Tina had her for 2 years, the woman I bought her from, She taught Dakota to rear up and paw in the air with her legs. And she's done that a couple times with me. And I asked Tina one day, I see her every once in a while. And I said, did you teach her to do that? And she said, yeah. I forgot to ask her what she did. Because a couple times Dakota, she's a big girl. She reared up and pawed the air in front. I just stood there in front of her like, she did it again. And then she just stopped. So some little tricks like that, tipping over stuff, and she'll take a carrot out of my pocket if I'm carrying it in the pocket, or she'll go looking around for a treat. I didn't trail ride with her because she spooks too easily. And I went on a ride with my friend Janet, who's deaf, who's a really good rider, and Janet had a really mellow mare, and so and she used to work with Dakota sometimes, give her some training. So we went on a ride together out there, in the world. And I saw her up in front. Dakota was, they're going back and forth. Dakota's head is going up and down. And I thought, gee, I wonder what's going on. It was summer and there was some really dry cracks in the ground. And I thought, I wonder if Dakota thinks those are snakes or something. I don't know. But, she's a really fast walker and she likes to get out in front of everybody. So she's a goer. So when we caught up with her, I said, what's going on? And she said, I'm just trying to get her under control. Because she wants to shoot off and be out in front. So I don't know. It's a quirk, So I don't ride her out there because I'm going to turn 81 in a couple of weeks. And it's not a good idea for me to get bounced off this time in my life. And she does get scared pretty easily, even though she's big and, kind of don't mess with me kind of a girl. Things really do spook her and she'll, startle. These old cowboys, what they'll tell you is you should just lunge a horse enough to see if they've got a good walk, a trot, a canter, and that's it. Now some people, ever since I've had her, I've seen people just lunge their horses for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, going in a circle over and over again. And that's not really necessary and it's boring, So I would ride her. Now this is a small arena out here. But when we were up at Chalk Hill, they have a huge outdoor arena. And so I rode her a lot in that arena. Just, when there wasn't anybody around, I'd get on her and I'd sing these old Western songs. Don't Fence Me In and all that stuff. We'd just walk around, huge arena. It would take a long time to get around the whole thing. And she seemed to really enjoy that. Put her head down a bit and we'd just go on and have a good time. So, at our ages, or my age and her, well-being, that's kind of what works for us. We don't have to be hot shots. I take her for grazing walks. I've just brought this chair in the last week. It just belongs somewhere down here at the ranch. And I set it outside, but when I'm here, I bring it in and I sit in it. And often I would sit on that mounting block back there and just sit with her for sometimes an hour. She would, like today, earlier, she arched her neck, like I would be in there. She arched her neck over me, so her head was here, the body's here, and I just kind of went to sleep like this, and her neck was here, and she went to sleep there. We just did that for about an hour. Because also I think she knows this big change is coming, and that we're kind of just reconciling, you might say, emotionally. So she gets along with this little guy that lives in here pretty well. I thought he was going to be dominant, but she is. So the way you can tell is like who gets the most hay or who gets to stand closest to the water. But she's really quite nice. In every place we've ever boarded, she has made friends. In fact, when we were across the way there was a horse on either side of her. We were in a single. This is a double, this one here. And they would almost get hysterical when I'd take her out. There's people often ride around on this little trail around, and two girls on their horses said, don't go up there, the horses are going crazy. And I knew what it was. It was like she was out with me, and they were all upset because she wasn't with them. She had left the paddock. So they just call and run up and down the fence line. So she attracts some pretty good friends. She doesn't get like that with other horses. She really likes them, but she doesn't get, like really hysterical when they go out for something. The thing is, when people sell horses, they do all kinds of awful stuff. They'll inject the hocks, for instance, and they'd say they're sore. And the injection will last like a month or so, and then you get the horse home, and the medication wears off. It's like, whoa, what kind of horse is this after all? There's quite a bit of stuff like that going on. So first I say just be really careful. Check your motives for having a horse, and check out what the cost is, because, you know, at a really reasonable rate, it's like $500 a month, and that's with trimming rather than shoes, and shoes are expensive, and most horses have them. I've got a little house in Sebastopol, which I started to buy in 1975, and I mean, I have traveled so much, I can't believe I'm still here. I'm still in that same house. I'm in the same house. And when people ask me about living in Sebastopol because it's so expensive, I say, well, you know, I came here in 74 and I started to buy the house in 75. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to afford it here. And then they say, oh, that was so smart of you. I said, no, it wasn't. I wasn't for looking into the future. It's just that a house came up for sale. It wasn't on the market. It wasn't even for sale. But, you know, these things happen. I think they might happen to everybody. But for me, they're significant because I say yes to things that I haven't deeply explored, but that feel right. They have a high intuitive, you know, connection. And so I do it, and I thought that would last a year. I thought maybe I'd be in this little town for a year, and I'm still here because I like it so much. And I like Dakota so much. I mean, the thing is, the elements that I have in my life now, I couldn't even have designed a better life, I think, than the one I have. Very, very fortunate. I know people that are so troubled by their life, and it's not like everything's a piece of cake all the time. It isn't. And, you know, the fact that Dakota is having all these issues right now, and that the amount of medication she's on is unsustainable because it will ruin her health. That's what we call life on life's terms. It's like, got to learn to live with life. The cards, you get the cards, you play the cards. And that's the deal. Rather than wishing I had another hand, I'm trying to play the hand I was given. And I'm pretty happy with the cards of later in life here. And not having that anxious need to figure things out and ask a million questions and travel over there and see, well, maybe they know how to do it, and maybe they know how to do it, you know? Nobody really knows, but I think we have to be tuned up and do the right thing for us, whatever that is. And that's what I'm able to do now, and I feel really, really fortunate. But, you know, I grew up in L.A., and my dad bought a Morgan mare when we were in grammar school. In fact, the whole family was split up for a time, and he bought the horse during that time, and he and my mother started a riding group. And they would pick us up and take us with them Sunday morning rides. And I rode the same horse, Flash, for like 2 or 3 years, but, you know, like a couple of times a month. I can see because my legs are really little. You know, I'm like, I must have been maybe 6 or 4. And then I was like, you know, elementary school, maybe 5th grade, I was when we stopped. So, but we did that, would ride in Griffith Park. And we'd do this hide and go seek thing where there'd be about 8 people with horses. We were the only kids that were allowed on the ride. And somebody would go out in advance of the rest of the group with a roll of toilet paper, and they'd leave little pieces of paper here and there, clues as where they were, and then they'd double back and go a different way. So it was basically hide and go seek in the hills of Griffith Park. It was a lot of fun. Big breakfast afterwards where the carousel is. We'd ride the carousel and grab the gold ring. So that was, you know, that was my first, really. Then my dad went into business for himself, sold the horse. The whole club disbanded because he wasn't president anymore, and he was always liked to be in charge. And that was it till I went to college. And my brother-in-law's dad had horse ranches all over California. And there was one near the university that he had gone to and that I also went to later. So his dad said, I could go ride any time. So I did. I used to go like a couple times a month. I'd go ride. And then one time I showed up and the foreman said, Mr. Reedman wants to give you any horse you want on this whole property.
Yeah.
Any of them. There's like 10. He described each horse. So I ended up with this big Palomino named King. And he was an ex-Long Beach Mounted Police horse, retired, and had been in parades and all that stuff. So I thought, oh, God, he'd be easy, So we're down there in Southern California where the orange groves are. And I took him to a friend's place who had a horse and got on him every day after class. He wouldn't budge, would not move, would not take a step. Didn't have a saddle because we were in college and we couldn't afford saddles. But so one day he just took off at a full gallop through the orange groves, tried to buck me up into the trees. But when you're 17, you can do this stuff.
Yeah.
I just hung on to the mane and he eventually stopped. And I guess he figured, okay, never mind, I'm not going to be able to dump her. So I guess we're going to be okay. And then I had him for 2 years. He was a wonderful horse. In fact, when I took him back, they come and picked him up because I didn't have a trailer. When I gave him back to that same ranch, my friend's mother came out with a camera to take a photo of us. So I was standing with him like this, and he reached over with his foot and put it on mine and leaned as hard as he could while she was holding the camera. Sort of like, okay, you're going to give me up now after all this time, huh? So, it hurt, but I never, I just kept smiling. I was like, okay, dang it. And so they came and picked him up. He went back to the ranch, and I didn't have any familiarity, exposure to, contact with horses for 50 years and wasn't planning on anything like this. I'm still in one of those 12-step programs, and the woman that I sponsored, one of the people I sponsored was a horse trainer. So she asked me one day if I wanted to meet her horses, and I said, oh, sure. I say yeah to a lot of things, it seemed like a good idea. So we went over. The truth was, it was actually at this place that she had her horses back then. So I met them and met somebody here who was a hoof trimmer, barefoot trimmer, like Dakota, no shoes, just trim. So I met some people that day, and one of them was a trimmer. And she said, you ought to come over to this other barn in Sebastopol and see these young girls with their horses. They do this Pirelli natural horsemanship. It's absolutely amazing. So I got permission to go over there on the property, and first time I was there, I saw a woman who I, later got to know. These are all teenagers, been doing natural horsemanship for 5 years. And her horse laid down in the arena while there was other horses in the arena, and she laid down and put her head on his neck, and they both took a nap. And I thought, oh, you're kidding. No. Really? And I found out that they could all do something or another that was spectacular in terms of relationship. So, and that's where I happened to meet Dakota, and she was just carry on. Every time I went over there to watch, the paddock she was in was right next to the arena where all this was going on. So, hey. So she'd nick her and carry on every time I'd go over there. I'd think, stop that, because I know how I am, pretty sensitive and love animals. So first of all, I never owned a horse. I wasn't responsible for all their care. When I had that horse in college, I boarded him at my friend's place. Well, I didn't even have to pay board, and we didn't shoe them or anything. We didn't do any of that. We didn't feed him special grains. We fed him hay. So I didn't know. So when Dakota came along, I had never done any of that. So that was like kind of a shock. First of all, you pay the board, you find a place that's good for your horse and good for you. You got to see if there's a place to ride on the property, see if the other boarders are happy, and see if the horses seem happy, and see if you can afford it. Then you got to get some tack. Usually get some supplements, some little feed supplements that for your breed, besides the hay. And so, there's a lot that's going on that, when you go rent a horse and just ride a little bit, you just, get on, they tack up the horse, so you just get on and go ride and bring the horse back and say, thanks, that was great. This is a whole different deal. You know, when I come, she knickers, and she's been, you know, we were at a place on Gurnville Road for a couple of years, and I'd be coming down Gurnville Road, and her paddock was next to the arena on the far side, and the people that board, it's usually women with horses, but the ones that boarded there said to Dakota, that she's not here. And then I'd pull up like 5 minutes later. So, of course, they're very sensitive, smell everything, because they're, you know, prey animals. So they have to be that sensitive. So she knows when I'm coming. If I change a vehicle, she knows what the new vehicle is. And she knickers and is like really, really happy to see me, like whenever I come.
That's
And if
awesome.
she's not, it's some sign of health with her. There's something going on health-wise. And she's very talkative with me. She does lots of chit-chat, a little kind of horse noises while I'm getting her, you know, her feed and all that stuff. So, yeah, that's all really special to me. It's just really, really special. So this has been the greatest journey of my life. You know, I used to travel. I broke my engagement in college because I thought I should go around the world. It seemed more important. So I hitchhiked and stayed in youth hostels and all that stuff. And, you know, I've just off and on traveled because I like the stimulation. I wanted to see how are people living in the world. What's going on out there? How do they do it? Just enjoying all the different cultures and all. And it wasn't until I lived in the city, when I got back from that first trip there, I got back in 64, I think, and I moved up here in 66. So San Francisco State offered a course downtown on something to do with traveling the inner journey. Nobody had ever talked about that before, and I took it and thought that's the trip that I've really been on. It's taken me a while to not need to go outside on those trips. I could and I enjoy them, but they're not necessary anymore. What I need to do is be in my life, be present, and live today by a set of principles. That's what I do. And make the most out of every day. Try to make, in my own little way, the world a better place by not being, you know, a contributor to the problems of the world. Try to contribute to the solution to the problems. I feel so lucky. How lucky I said yes. Lead with the heart. Love your life. If you don't love it, make some changes till you can.